Fire Emblem and Persona are both well known for their social bonding mechanics that let you spend time with each game's characters outside of battle, learning their backstories, building friendships, and eventually forming romantic relationships between the characters. For two games that are very different in terms of structure and mechanics, the social bonding mechanics are highly reminiscent of each other, and fans of one series might like the other one just because of these mechanics. So let's talk about how these bonding mechanics work in each series, the difference between them, and what they can learn from each other. Fire Emblem introduced the support system in the third game in the series, and it's been a mainstay ever since. In between tactical battles where characters can be lost permanently, members of your army can unwind by sharing a conversation with their allies. In some cases, these conversations will be highly related to the main plot of the game, but in most cases, they're personal asides. Units will talk about their love of painting or what their childhood was like in their home country. A character can have up to 3 or 4 conversations with each ally that they can support with, and each conversation becomes more personal than the last. Then, once you finish supporting and get into battle, allies fighting near their friends are rewarded with stat boosts. Supports are essential in Fire Emblem as the cast of characters is generally in the high 20s or low 30s. For minor characters with few lines of dialogue in the main plot, supports are the primary way players get to see their characterization. And this is why there's so many popular minor characters in Fire Emblem even when they have nothing to do with the plot of the game. In the original Fire Emblem, which didn't have a support system, it was really hard to grow attached to units who may only have a few lines of dialogue in the entire game. But once supports were added, you get a good idea of what every character is about, no matter how important they are to the main plot. In many games in the Fire Emblem series, units were limited to about 5 support conversations per playthrough, so this system also provides some variability to replays, allowing you to use the exact same units on the same maps, but still get a different experience based on what supports you choose. Newer Fire Emblem games let units support as many other units as the player wants, but there's still some variability in this system as the player gets to decide which units romance each other, and each unit can only romance one partner. Moving over to Persona, in between going to school and delving dungeons, you'll get the chance to spend some time and hang out with your friends to increase your bonds with them in the social link or confidant system. In this system, allies and important NPCs each have 9 conversations with the main character, revealing their personality and usually presenting some sort of problem that you as the main character get to help them through by the 9th conversation. Just like Fire Emblem, you also get to choose a character to romance. Well, you can romance multiple characters, but the game will make you feel bad about it later. As you progress through social link conversations, you'll be rewarded with stronger allies and new services from NPCs. For example, once you complete a few conversations with Ryuji, you will occasionally get an extra attack when Joker fails to kill an enemy, and as you befriend the game's doctor, she'll start selling you better items and at better prices. Unlike some Fire Emblem games though, you aren't limited on how many social links you can finish in a playthrough, but there is a catch. Persona games take place over a limited time, and while you can finish every social link before the end of the game, most people won't be good enough at time management to do it on their first playthrough. This creates an interesting dynamic where players have to prioritize which characters they want to help and learn about the most, and which ones can deal with their own problems. The two biggest differences between Fire Emblem's supports and Persona's social links are the number of conversations each character has, and how many characters can bond with each other. In Fire Emblem, units usually have 7 to 10 characters that they can unlock support conversations with, and in Persona, only the main character can improve social links with the other characters. At the same time, Persona offers 9+ conversations per social link, while support conversations in Fire Emblem are limited to only 3 or 4. When Fire Emblem is at its best, this results in characters revealing different facets of themselves in different supports, or at least having a known facet of the character addressed in different ways by different support partners. But with supports limited to 3 or 4 conversations, supports can sometimes be shallow or repetitive. Fire Emblem supports often follow this basic structure. C support, characters are introduced and a problem is established. B support, characters work on the problem but it isn't resolved. A support, the problem is resolved or somehow improved. S support, romance. There are some exceptions to this, especially every game has some comic relief supports, but this general formula covers a lot of the supports in Fire Emblem. Another problem with this format is that almost every man plus woman pairing has a romantic ending, so every A support has to end in this awkward position where it can end in romance if the player moves on to the S support, but it's a satisfying ending if they don't. Some supports manage this fine, but it can often lead to an awkward A support or an S support where the romance feels very out of the blue and sudden. In contrast, Persona characters only get one social link partner, that being the main character, but have 9 or more conversations, which means that their problems can be addressed in more detail and with more nuance. So when a character grows a lot throughout a social link, it feels a little more natural than in a Fire Emblem support where characters sometimes solve a major life problem over the course of 3 conversations. There are 2 immediate drawbacks with Persona's system that aren't present in Fire Emblems, though. The first is that the writers only get one shot at getting the social link right per character. In Fire Emblem, if I don't like a character's support with one partner, I can just stop progressing it and choose a different one. In Persona, if you don't like the plot of a character's social link, you can choose not to do it, but you won't get another way to learn more about that character outside of the main story. The second drawback is that the social link system relies on you liking the main character, since he will be in every conversation. Joker in Persona 5 is somewhat of a blank slate, but he does have a little bit of a personality, and if you don't connect with him, social links will feel blander than they could be if other characters were involved. In Fire Emblem, if you don't like the main character, like I really hated Corrin and Fates, you don't have to do their supports at all. You can still get development for the minor characters through their support conversations with other characters that aren't the protagonist. A problem shared by both the social link and the support system is that the main story often doesn't factor in development that happens during these conversations. In Persona 5, a big part of Ryuji's social link conversations is him learning not to be such a hothead and to control his emotions better. I did this social link pretty early in my first playthrough of Persona 5, so it caused some dissonance later on when the arc of the main story was based in part on Ryuji not being able to control his emotions. It felt like we had already solved this problem and the main story was just regressing us and making us solve it again. I don't think it's really a reasonable expectation for games to change the main story heavily depending on where you are in each of your social links, because there's so many of them. But I think that the way that you can avoid this dissonance is ensuring that the conflict and development that happens during social links is different than the conflict and development in the main story. The main plot and the social link conversations or support conversations can't address the same issue, or whichever one that you finish second is gonna feel a little weird. Fire Emblem sometimes has this problem in support conversations alone. A character may have a similar problem addressed in 3 different support conversations. This works fine if you only do one of them, which made it somewhat more successful when support conversations were limited to 5. But now that we can do as many as we want, when you do a second or third support on the same issue, it feels a little redundant and dissonant. So social links and supports both have clear advantages, but I think the 2 systems can learn a lot from each other and improve a bit by taking some aspects from the other. Fire Emblem offers a lot of dialogue for each character, since each unit can support up to 6 to 10 other units, but each support is limited to 3 conversations, so character development has to be limited or feel a bit rushed. We can't just copy the social link system, because 9 conversations for 6 to 10 different pairings for every character would be a lot. But I think Fire Emblem could make support stronger by limiting units to 4 to 6 potential support partners, but provide 5 conversations instead of 3 and make the supports with each partner really distinct from each other. Fire Emblem is great at providing a plethora of character relationships, but there has often been a problem of repetitiveness because C supports are often retreads, reintroducing a character and their quirks. I think you could make supports better by making the support chains a little longer and really distinct from each other. Making support chains longer would also make permadeath a better mechanic. Losing a character that's received more development and investment would be even more heartbreaking than losing a character as it stands in games now, where they might only have 3 conversations under their belt. Persona's social links are really great for developing individual characters. With 9 or 10 conversations, you can really flesh out a character and develop them in a realistic way, as there's more time for nuance and detail. That said, since only the main character can have social link conversations, you lose out on the building of relationships between characters that aren't your protagonist. If Persona 5 were a Fire Emblem game, you wouldn't just get supports between Joker and Ryuji, you would also get to build the relationship between Ryuji and An and Ryuji and Yusuke through support conversations. I think Persona could become an even richer experience if there were more opportunities for characters that aren't Joker to talk to each other. I don't think every character in Persona needs a 9 conversation social link with every other character, But even 2 or 3 conversations between different pairings throughout the game would be great, and it would be a more satisfying way of unlocking the showtime attacks that characters use together. This doesn't have to take anything away from the social link system as it stands either. Keep the main character's 9 conversations with other characters and just sprinkle in conversations between other characters throughout the game, and I think you have yourself a near-perfect bonding system. Especially because you have about 100 hours of gameplay, so sprinkling these conversations through the game would be a nice way of changing things up without adding too much bloat, since you could have these things once every 5 or 10 hours and it would still be a big plus in my opinion. So that's what I think of Persona and Fire Emblem social bonding systems and how they can learn from each other. What do you think? Are there other games that do social bonding even better than these two? Let me know in the comments, and like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I also stream on Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. CST, so check that out if you're interested at twitch.tv/BadgerBarian, and have yourself an awesome week.